right, Nancy, thanks so much. But to help us further understand what went right on that Airbus, joining us now is Sara Nelson, International President of the Association of Flight Attendants. Sara, great to have you here. This footage is so incredible to watch. A lot went wrong. The intercom failed. One of the exits was blocked by fire. The emergency chutes didn't work properly. And yet there was no panic, no raiding the luggage bins, and everyone got off safely. So what went right?
What went right was that you had incredibly well-trained flight attendants who were giving very clear commands to people, and people were listening to that. We are trained with repetition in not only our commands, but the actions that go with those commands, so that that kicks in the event of an emergency. Often when people are in crisis, they go into crisis mode, they go into shock, they don't know what to do. We shout commands, including things like release your seatbelts, because we need to give people very clear commands about what to do at each step of the evacuation. And so that's what flight attendants did here. They used the tools that they had, their voices, the megaphones. They also used their situational awareness to make sure that we're getting people going in the right direction, and to make sure that that flow is not jammed up by people quickly moving and jamming up the exit flow.
One big culprit for jamming up that exit flow is people trying to grab their luggage. We have seen in other airline disasters where people died because passengers persisted and insisted on getting their bag from the overhead or going back to grab their purse and then clogging the aisles because they're trying to get, to carry all that luggage. What is it the flight attendants are trained to say over and over again to passengers, and that these passengers all paid attention to?
Well, every airline has their own set of commands, but it goes something like this: leave everything. We shout that over and over again at United Airlines, and there's some version of that at every single airline. That is a part of the commands. If you have commands, if there are actually words in those commands that you're giving to passengers, that means it's a very, very important action item, because those bags can hinder someone else from getting through. It can slow down the flow. It can puncture a slide and make that exit unusable for everyone. If you start losing exits, obviously you have no way to escape. Those bags can get in the way for a lot of reasons. So it's a very, very serious issue. And if people had been grabbing bags in this incident, we may have seen half of the plane perish on that burning plane.
There's a theory of survival. I did a whole documentary on this several years ago on how to survive a disaster, and experts on this, because there are experts, believe it or not, around the world who actually study disasters, many of them plane crashes, and they say that people involved in disasters can be divided into three groups. It's the 80-10-10 rule. 10% act badly. They shove people out of the way. They step on children to escape themselves. 10% act well. They take the lead. They take control. They help people. But the vast majority, 80%, will freeze and wait to be led. Have you seen that? Are you trained for that?
That's exactly right. And actually, we are trained with those three groups in mind. So our commands are very clear to that 80% that need very clear instruction about what to do. We also will identify very quickly the leaders and ask them to help stay at the bottom and help people off the slide, things like that. Or as we're sweeping the aircraft at the end, for anyone who has a disability, we may ask for helpers who we see as leaders and identify them very quickly. We also know there are the bad actors, and we are trained in how to give them very clear commands and tell them what to do, or tell other people to restrain them and tell them to stop doing what they're doing, because they may hold up everyone and cause a loss of life.
Yeah, I've heard.
We study very closely, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I've heard flight attendants say that as we're boarding the plane, we passengers, that you guys are already eyeballing who you think, this person could be a leader, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Finally, I just wanted to point out one key factor here. There were 18 minutes from the time the two planes collided on the runway to the time that the Airbus exploded into flames. 18 minutes. One of the reasons why all these people were able to get off safely is that these planes are actually designed to prevent fires. All the materials that make up this newish Airbus 350 it's all made of things that are fireproof, or at least fire retardant, right?
Yes. So the regulations and the design of aircraft has evolved over time. studying accidents that have happened and applying that to new regulations or new manufacturing of aircraft. And we have been a part, our union has been a part of advocating for things like flame retardant carpet in the cabin. You have to think about everything that's involved here. We've had to actually fight for flame retardant uniforms for ourselves because we're the last ones to leave that plane as it's burning.
Yeah.
So yes, all of this new technology has been put in place. And I want to be very clear. When accidents like this happen and there's a potential massive loss of life, everyone pays attention. But air travel is the safest mode of transportation because we take this so seriously, because we get everyone to follow the rules. We have very clear regulations. You can't do things on planes that you can do in almost every other area of your life. And that's because the only way that we can travel safely is if we all follow the rules and do that together and sacrifice a little bit of our own liberty to get from point A to point B safely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all of that has come along over a long time, and those regulations have been written in blood.
Well, Sara, it's so important. I got to tell you, ever since I did that documentary, and I'm a frequent flyer, I always count the number of rows behind me and in front of me until to the next emergency exit. Because if you're in the dark,
you get an A+.
if you're in the dark or that cabin's filled with smoke, you might have to feel and count your way up to where you hope that exit is. It's really, really important to just take a few key things, stay calm, and follow directions. Sara Nelson, good to have you here.
Follow the directions and count those rows. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So much.